Hello everyone. This video comes with a trigger warning. I will be discussing domestic violence stuff, but more on the sexual abuse aspect of it. So if you trigger, there is a warning. All forms of abuse can be really difficult to endure, but we know that survivors of sexual abuse are often hesitant to talk about it, even if they have previously opened up to a friend, counselor, or an advocate on a chat line. If you are in an abusive relationship and your partner has ever pressured or forced you to do anything sexually that you were not comfortable with or did not actively consent to, that is considered sexual abuse. Your body is yours, and whether it's the first time or the 100th time, whether it's a hookup, a committed relationship, or even a marriage, you are never obligated to give consent, even if you have done so in the past. You get to make your own boundaries. A person can decide to stop any activity at any time for any reason. If you don't feel safe saying no, then you have no room to say yes. If your partner pouts or begs until you finally say yes, that is not consent. If they tell you that you'd have sex or do any other sexual activity if you really loved them, that is not consent. If your partner pretends not to hear you when you say no or stop, that is not consent. Any response that disregards or minimizes your wishes when you decline a sexual activity is not okay. We know that being LGBTQ+ doesn't protect anyone from abuse. So if you have to prove anything to your partner by engaging in a sexual activity that you are not comfortable with, that is abuse. Your sexual orientation and gender identity are yours, and you get to choose whether to disclose them or not, as well as who you tell if your partner is threatening to out you or refusing to let you come out. If you don't have sex, that is abuse. If you are into the kink style, that is perfectly fine. There is nothing wrong with safe and consensual sexual activities that involve an element of bondage, pain, or submission, as long as the relationship itself is healthy and respectful. The basis of a healthy BDSM relationship is consent. So if your partner is unwilling to discuss boundaries with you or ignores your safe word, that is abuse. It is super helpful to put together a safety plan. One of the most helpful things that you can do if you are in a relationship that is abusive in any way is to make a safety plan. A safety plan is a living thing, so it is important to update, change, or adapt it whenever it is necessary. Your safety is the number one priority. So we believe that no matter what you have to do to stay safe, it's worth doing. Every individual safety plan looks different depending on their relationship. You know your relationship and your partner best, so trust yourself to be the expert in your life. The sexual abuse safety tips that I'm going over are meant to be just in general, so please only use them if you feel safe in doing so. Consider your physical safety. If your partner becomes physically violent, if you say no to a sexual activity, sometimes giving in may be the best way to protect yourself. If you decide to do that, know that giving in doesn't mean giving up, and it doesn't mean you consented to anything that's happening. There is nothing that you could ever do that could make your partner's behavior your fault or your responsibility. If you are making choices in order to protect your immediate safety, that is not consent. That is survival. Again, consent cannot happen when someone feels unsafe saying no. Remind yourself that abuse is a choice. We are each only in control of our own words and actions, and everyone deserves a partner who treats them with respect at all times. I've heard from many people that they can sometimes strategize to avoid sexual activity for their safety. Some examples that I've heard is that they make a point to spend time with the partner in public. They avoid going to wherever sexual activity usually occurs. They take a friend with them when visiting the partner, and they avoid seeing the partner at the times of the day when sexual abuse generally occurs. Now, if you're living with the partner, it can be a little bit harder, but you can sleep in another room, stay over at a friend or family member's home, tell your partner you need to go out of town for business, house sit for people regularly, ask friends or families to call you just after bedtime with minor emergencies, talk to your doctor and see if they can give your partner a medical excuse to avoid intercourse, say that you're unable to get aroused or fake ailments like nausea, menstrual cramps, headache, migraine, fever, sore throat, leg cramps, urinary tract infection, yeast infection, hemorrhoids. Most of the stuff a partner is not going to just check and see if it's, accurate. As a last resort, some callers and people that I have talked to have made themselves sick. They have used laxatives. I do not encourage that. They have taken stuff that induces vomiting. I do not encourage that. You really need to consider your own physical health and any personal history of disordered eating, diabetes, or anything like that some of those habits can really affect. Because, like I said, I don't recommend it. But it is something that I know many people have done. In the end, whether you use strategies to avoid sexual activity or not, the person being abusive is the only one who can end the abuse. No one else can prevent someone from being abusive if that's how they choose to behave. Abuse is never the victim's fault. And then you can consider your emotional safety. If your partner is gaslighting you and becoming emotionally abusive when you try to assert your boundaries, it might be helpful for you to make an emotional safety plan to go along with your physical safety plan. For survivors of all genders, ages, races, sexual orientations, abilities, religions, immigration statuses, and locations, talking to a counselor can be a great way to start to heal from any kind of abuse. Support groups can also be an important tool because they let you see how others have coped with their own situations and often let you interact with people at various stages of the healing process. Finding the right counselor or support group can be difficult sometimes, but there are many advocates out there that will support you and put you in touch with local resources in your community that are amazing. Some counselors click with people and they just don't click with others. It really does take time to find that right one. But if you're needing any assistance in that area, you can reach out to me and I will do my best to help you find one. And then protect yourself from pregnancy or STIs. Sex can have big consequences, such as STIs and pregnancy, and you have the right to protect yourself. Know that pregnancy is one of the most dangerous times in an abusive relationship. So if you are pregnant, be sure to put your safety first. Male and female condoms can help protect against both STIs and pregnancy, and dental dams can be used for safe oral sex on women and safe oral anal sex on anyone. PrEP is a daily medication that can help protect people from contracting HIV, and the HPV vaccines can help protect people from common strains of that virus. There are a number of forms of birth controls available today, and Planned Parenthood can help you decide what kind is right for you, even if your partner can't know you're using it. If your partner refuses to use or let you use birth control, tries to get you pregnant or get you pregnant without your consent, or tries to force you to have or not have an abortion, those are all forms of reproductive coercion. If you're concerned about pregnancy, STIs, or HIV, talk to your doctor and do whatever you can that makes you feel the safest. And then you can consider your digital safety. Well, towards the end of this video, I'm going into more about the coercion and stuff. But for now, we're moving on. Consider your digital safety. Pictures and videos are immortal. So if your partner is digitally abusing you by forcing you to pose for or send them explicit photos or videos, keeping yourself safe can be a challenge. Note that in every state it is illegal for anyone to have or share sexual photos or videos of people under the age of 18. If you do pose for or take photos or videos, try to keep your face and any other identifying information like birthmarks, scars, or tattoos out of them. Even the background of the picture can be identifying, so be aware of your surroundings when possible. Understand the laws. Know that you have the right to say slow down, no, or stop at any time. And even if you've got sexual pleasure from an activity, that doesn't mean you gave consent. If your partner is forcing you to have sex with other people, be aware that it's possible they are making money from it, which is illegal in most places. You have the right to defend yourself and fight back if anyone is trying to coerce, pressure, guilt, or force you into any kind of sexual activity. If you are in school, Title IX, a federal mandate in the Education Amendments of 1972, prohibits sex discrimination in educational programs anywhere in the country. Under Title IX, people who attend school and have experienced sexual harassment, sexual assault, or rape have the right to support services through their high school, college, or university. There are also state laws regarding sexual assault. The laws in every state are different. So if you want to know how your state handles cases of sexual assault, sexual abuse, and rape, chat with one of the advocates for that state, who can find contact information for legal advocates in your area. There is a lot of helpful tips on how to document the abuse if you choose to pursue legal help, which could include a protective order. If you feel that the abusive person would reduce the level and frequency of threats if the law became involved, this may be an effective tool to increase your safety. A protective order does not replace a safety plan, but a legal advocate may be able to help you explore whether getting a protective order could keep your partner from being able to legally contact you. Okay, now a little bit of this is going to be a repeat, but it's something else that I came across, and it kind of sums up sexual abuse, coercion, and stuff like that. So, you may be experiencing sexual abuse if your partner has or repeatedly does any of the following: forces you to dress in a sexual way you're uncomfortable with, insults you in sexual ways or calls you explicit names, forces or manipulates you into having sex or performing sexual acts, especially when you're sick, tired, or physically injured from their abuse, chokes you or restrains you during sex without your consent, holds you down during sex without your consent, hurt you with weapons or objects during sex, involve other people in your sexual activities against your will, ignores your feelings regarding sex, forces you to watch or make pornography, intentionally gives you or attempts to give you an STI. Now, sexual coercion. Examples of sexually coercive behavior include implying that you owe them something sexually in exchange for previous actions, gifts, or consent. Gives you drugs or alcohol to loosen up your inhibitions. Using your relationship status as leverage, including by demanding sex as a way to prove your love, or by threatening to cheat or leave. Reacting with sadness, anger, or resentment if you say no or don't immediately agree to something, or trying to normalize their sexual demands by saying something like they need it. Continuing to pressure you after you say no, or intimidating you into fearing what will happen if you say no. Sexual coercion lies on the continuum of sexually aggressive behavior, and it may vary in practice from begging and persuasion to forced sexual contact. It may be verbal and emotional through statements made to pressure guilt or shame, or it may appear more subtly. Even if your partner isn't forcing you to perform sexual acts against your will, making you feel obligated to do them at all is coercion in itself. Being in a relationship, no matter what the arrangement, never means that you owe your partner intimacy of any kind. Reproductive coercion. Examples of reproductive coercion include refusing to use a condom or other type of birth control, breaking or removing a condom before or during sex, or refusing to pull out, lying about methods of birth control, like having a vasectomy or being on the pill, removing birth control methods like rings, IUDs, or contraceptive patches, or sabotaging methods by poking holes in condoms or tampering with pills, withholding money to purchase birth control, monitoring your menstrual cycles to inform their abuse, forcing pregnancy or not supporting your decisions about when or if to have children, intentionally becoming pregnant against your wishes, forcing you to get an abortion or preventing you from getting one, threatening you or acting violent if you don't agree to end or continue a pregnancy, keeping you pregnant by getting you pregnant again shortly after you have a child. Reproductive coercion is a form of power and control where one partner strips another of the ability to control their own reproductive system. It can be difficult to identify this form of coercion. It's often less visible than other types of abuse, occurring at the same time, and may appear as pressure, guilt, or shame about having or wanting children, or not having or wanting children. Some things are beyond our control, like the weather. One aspect of your life that you have complete control over is how far you want to take it with your romantic partner, whether that's your husband or wife, boyfriend or girlfriend, or anyone you're involved with. You should never feel forced into anything that you are not comfortable with or don't feel like doing. Have you ever felt pressured by your partner to have sex? Have you ever felt guilted into it? Or felt like you weren't able to say no? Abuse is often centered on power and control in all aspects of the relationship, so it's not uncommon that an abusive partner will try to force intimacy. Sexual coercion is part of sexually aggressive behavior. It can vary from being egged on and persuaded to being forced to have contact. It can be verbal and emotional in the form of statements that make you feel pressure, guilt, or shame, as I have already discussed. You can also be made to feel forced through more subtle actions. If your partner makes you feel like you owe them, example, because you're in a relationship, because you've had sex before, because they spent money on you or bought you a gift, gives you compliments that sound extreme or insincere as an attempt to get you to agree to something. As I've mentioned before, gives you drugs or alcohol to loosen you up. Plays on the fact that you're in the relationship, saying such things as, sex is the way to prove that you love me. If I don't get sex from you, I'll get it from somewhere else. Reacts negatively with sadness, anger, and resentment if you say no and don't immediately agree to something. Continue to pressure you after you say no. Makes you feel threatened or afraid of what might happen if you say no. Tries to normalize their sexual expectations with such as, I need it, I'm a man. Even if your partner isn't forcing you to do sexual acts against your will, being made to feel obligated is coercion. Dating someone, being in a relationship, or being married never means that you owe your partner intimacy of any kind. I cannot say that enough. That's why some things are being repeated in this video, because they are very important. Like being married. When you sign that marriage certificate, you do not sign it to say that you will lay down for your partner every single night or 20 times a day. Intimacy comes with love. If there is domestic abuse and you are falling out of love with your partner and they want to keep up the honeymoon phase, I guess you can say, that is wrong on their part. A coercive partner may feel that consent is ongoing. However, consenting to something once doesn't make it a given each time. Consenting to one action does not mean that you have given your consent for other actions. In a relationship where sexual coercion is occurring, there is a lack of consent and the coercive partner doesn't respect the boundaries or wishes of the other. No one should be made to feel pressured into a sexual act.